The next question here, how do I protect myself from getting burned out?
Yeah, this is a really common thing. Over the years, I've seen it happen to many friends. Not to say that it's not fine to, just throw in the towel with homeschooling and send your kids wherever you feel like they belong, right? There's a time and a season, and different kids need different things, and it's good to have many good options, right? But there are some things you can do to help prevent that so that you keep the joy within you for home educating, as well as that will rub off on your children. We alluded to some of it in a previous question and answer time where we talked about make sure that you are doing some of the things you love. I love to play the piano. It's just something I love to do, always have loved. I love to go fishing, and I love to garden, be outside, things like that. So I make sure that I have opportunities to do that. It's good that I have a lot of boys so that I can easily go fishing. However, there was a time in a season with a lot of little kids. That's not as easy to do, right? At this point, the kids are older, so we can do it more easily, right? But, and then, I play the piano when people are falling asleep. And that for me, that ties me to a time when I was little, because my parents were musical and they didn't always play themselves, but I remember falling asleep to the 1812 overture, cannons and all.
Nice.
How calm is that, But it has a soft spot in my heart because I listen to that going to sleep a lot. So that's a way that I can continue doing one of the things that I love, but also, and that keeps me rejuvenated. The gardening thing, for me, again, is something I love doing. And so that's easy to bring kids along with. The other thing is find those things that you and your children both love. Um, Most kids really love to be read to, and that's a really good one for any season of the year. Whether you lay your blanket outside on the grass and read outside, or snuggle up in a blanket inside and read. It's just a nice together moment, and it has so many benefits, right? So find those things that you and your children love doing. If it's cooking, then break out the cookie dough and the recipe and make your cookies or bread. Or it's nice if it's something the kids can put their hands in and feel what it feels like. But choose those things so that when there's a lot of, you just need a break from the usual routine you've set up, then you can, hey, let's read this great book, or what treat should we make tonight for dinner? Things like that, right? That help with this kind of to prevent this kind of burnout situation. I want to just add this one experience that just happened to me today that is extremely rejuvenating for me. And you'll understand why after I explain it. But it's as moms, we're busy and we're often sacrificing much of our time on behalf of other people. And that's a pleasure, but we have to keep in mind that, we have to fill our cups as well, right? And everyone does that in a different way. I like to start the day early with that kind of thing, reading scriptures, praying, exercising, a little meditation, a little journaling, and hopefully I can get those things done prior to the youngest people waking up. Not always, and so they usually join me at the end of it, right? So this morning, the two youngest little boys at our house are so excited about solar system and the Milky Way, galaxies, and all of that kind of thing. And so for making good choices, the 6-year-old had earned, we have this little card, and I'll put the link for this in our resources page, but earned, it's like 39 little bubbles you have to color in to finish this little card of good choices. And he had earned all of those with significant effort. And so, to go along with the solar system thing, I had found these little telescopes. They're not expensive, but they feel like they're just like the best thing, right? And they're like patterned after Galileo's, so they, magnify 12 times or whatever. It's not a ton, but enough to be fun for the kids, right? So I had given that to Thomas, is the 6-year-old, and he later last night, and he was just so excited, wanted to virtually sleep with it, and I was just so thrilled. So this morning, during my reading of one of the books that I'm reading in the morning, it's about a 300-page book, and I generally read maybe one paragraph if I'm lucky. So I opened that up this morning to read my paragraph, and they were both awake. The 9-year-old and the 6-year-old were awake, and I was having a hard time really focusing on more than one sentence because, Mom, look at this picture, about this Bible story and things like that. And anyway, I persevered, answered the questions, and then kept reading. And there was this one sentence that said, when Galileo invented his telescope and was inviting his friend to look through the telescope, one of his friends would not look for fear that he would see what he was determined was not there.
Oh, interesting.
And for me in that moment, see, I can hardly speak about it because it's very fresh. The fact that in this book, which was speaking of Jesus, it wasn't even a science book or anything, to come up with in a 300-page book that there on the page where I was a reference to a telescope and to a principle that's really powerful, right? How often am I willing to look at something because I'm so determined to not have it be true, right?
Yeah.
It was a powerful moment for me.
Mhm.
And that kind of thing refuels me because it sends me a message that God is in charge. And my best planning, yeah, it's great to do it, right? But He's got it so much better planned for me and our kids that I just do my best and let Him take care of the rest. It was super, super helpful to me this morning.
I love it. So let me play a little devil's advocate for a minute here. So we were talking about burnout, right? And, it sounds amazing to, find the things you find joy in and stuff. But I think a lot of people suffer from guilt at the same time because they're laying on the blanket, reading the story, and in the back of their mind, they're going through all the things, the to-dos, right? And so, and there's a time and place certainly to pause and read, but a lot of the to-dos are critical as well for people, I think.
For sure.
And they'll feel that way. And so then what will end up happening a lot of the time is they'll try to devote a bunch of time during the day to their kid, and then they might try to burn the midnight oil after everyone's asleep, to do it. And that's bad. You don't want to compromise on your sleep, right? So, here's this mom frazzled, life revolves, it's not only does she need to educate these kids, but she needs to, feed them and, all these things. And she's feeling pressed because let's just create a day, a random schedule that I'm just going to make up. But, you wake up, get ready for the day, dress, all this stuff that sometimes is a major exercise in patience just to begin with, right?
Right.
And that can take an hour sometimes, to get going. Then you got to do breakfast, right? Prepare that, eat it, clean it up, right? So now you're well into the morning hours. You're supposed to then do school or chores, maybe. Let's take chores. Let's do those first. Great. Well, by the time you finish chores and work with everybody, and get them accomplished, work through the issues and the meltdowns and all this stuff, you're well into lunch preparation time. So now you got to worry about fixing lunch, eating lunch, cleaning up lunch, right? And now it's the afternoon. And so now you've got a choice. You could maybe eke in a few hours of academics, maybe, right? But you don't forget you also have, maybe a sports practice, that's fast approaching. You've got, the errand you need to run. You must take the one letter to the post office. Otherwise, you're going to miss a deadline or whatever. There's always these things about normal life too that always infiltrate.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Right.
And so you say, now we're going to do that instead of, dedicated academics. And then it's dinner time and you got to fix and, clean up, and you finish with that. And then no one wants to do school at night, right?
Right.
And dad comes home from work, and wants to, maybe spend some time with people, and kids want to spend time with him and whatnot. And then it's bedtime routine and everyone goes to bed, and you get to the end of the day and you're like, we did absolutely nothing, related to school, right?
Right.
And it may seem like that repeats, it's just like on constant repeat. Obviously days will change, but you feel like you're accomplished if you eke in an hour of academics.
Mm-hmm.
So why is this all related to burnout? People can easily feel burned out because they're just feeling too much weight, so to speak.
Yeah.
They feel like they're failing their kids, but if they focus more on their kids, then they feel like they're failing at life.
Right.
So what's your response to those people that are feeling that way?
Yes. Yeah. It's just what happens, as you said. It's not unusual. Probably the trickiest thing to get used to with home educating and the way of life is one day out of 10, like out of Monday through Friday, 2 weeks of Monday through Friday might look like the picture perfect. Not even perfect, but you might have a schedule that was full of good work and play and nutritious meals and stuff like that, and you just are thrilled with those days. That's about what, over the 29 years that we've been home educating, 34 if you want to count from the earliest child's birth. You have to get used to that kind of flow with things that, and a lot of times it's a mistaken perception on my part, right? That, oh, well, they're not really learning anything, and yet they generally are. So if we can get used to the idea that we try our best, we do our best to plan and have a routine that follows a schedule. When kids get older, they can generally follow a schedule, right? And so as they get older, the idea is that you're consistent with it enough so that they will just keep doing it. And that is pretty much how it worked here for you guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so don't be too quick to jump ship after, 2 weeks of time and maybe you've only had one day. Just be celebratory of that day, positive of that day, and then keep trying. It will happen. You wouldn't want to not take care of the baby. The baby is the school project, right?
Right.
And so you want to train kids to do that. This might be a good place to insert this little piece about our family, and that is that of the 9 kids, 5 of you are biological, and 4 we adopted through the foster care system. And, so somewhere along the line, the parents of those 4 kiddos, and we've had others in our home, didn't get that lesson on the baby is the lesson, right? The baby is the thing that you do, that you take care of at all costs, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't just kind of let them be there while you do your things. You need that's what you need to do is to take care of the children that are reliant on you, because the impact of neglect on young children, even in utero, is significant. I wouldn't have believed it if we hadn't lived it, right?
Right.
And it's a significant thing. And so you would never want to send a message different than we take care of the young kids that are very, in a sensitive place. And you're older, so you can help with that, or you can just keep going and being more independent with your studies, while you're waiting for mom to come. At the same time, I remember days, you'll remember these days, where we came to that time in the afternoon and, finally we're going to have this little moment, right? And I remember some of it being in the living room, and we have windows that could look out at our great neighbor that lived next to us. She was amazing, nice grandma that treated us like her own family.
Mm-hmm.
And she knew that, we were out mowing lawns on Tuesdays, me and you guys.
Yep.
And so she would fix lunch for us every Tuesday, right?
Yep.
When I say lunch, I'm not talking about, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right? What am I talking about?
Awesome lunch, epic lunch.
Yeah, akin to Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
She'd have, stuffing and, some kind of squash, turkey, ham, whatever, maybe some rolls, a treat that would show up here every Tuesday afternoon, knowing that we were busy. And when was I going to make the lunch, which was a valid thing, right? It was before everybody could drive and pull the lawn mowing trailer. And so it's true, it was tricky to juggle that, right? So going back to an afternoon where we had kind of a chaotic morning, and we had this little piece of time before we had to fix dinner, and we'd be down in the living room doing something that I would think, okay, this is going to be our moment. And we would see that dear grandma outside the window, and she'd be, raking leaves or
picking up sticks from her.
Yeah, picking up sticks from the grass, from the tree that they had dropped down.
Yeah.
And I'm left with a choice there. And I remember vividly feeling this challenge sometimes, that what do we do? Do we go help her, or do we stay here? And this is like our 1 minute to, do what we haven't gotten to this whole day. Thankfully, we chose every time to go out and help her. There weren't very many times, I don't remember any times, that some of us at least didn't go out and help her.
Yeah.
And, today we'd give anything to have her there to help, right? She's gone to the other side because she got old and is in a better place. But service is never convenient, right? And the sooner you learn that, and again, and are willing to put your desires aside to help someone else, you're actually the prize-winning example of this when you were little, because you often told me, I love you blew snow for service and mowed lawns and made money when you were little, right? Mm-hmm. Very little.
Yep.
Made money mowing lawns in the spring and summer and fall. And I remember vividly you telling me, Mom, I really love doing it for service because I don't get tired when I'm doing it for service. I get tired when people are paying me, right? How much better lesson can you have than that, right? So that then you have this sense of serving your fellow beings that goes with you through your whole life. And you're never going to find a curriculum necessarily that's going to include that in a worksheet.
Yeah.
But real life teaches it in a really powerful way.
Well, and then just transitioning back once again to the burnout, last comment on that. I think people and parents sell themselves short just a little bit, moms especially, by not, but I should also say, dad should take advantage too, by not including the kids in whatever project they need to get done for the day, whether that's cooking the meal, right? I don't think this is just the philosophy of Jeffrey, but I don't think you should have the TV on while you're preparing the food, even though that might, in the moment seem like maybe a little reprieve for you as the mom just to get away. But if you can let them, sit on the counter and, watch there and, help, observe, whatever, set the table. I mean, that would be classified as part of the chores that, we had the rotation on who set the table, all these things. And then, when you're preparing for the actual academic school projects, like we were talking, one time we were talking about electricity, if I remember right, and we were looking at books and things at the library and stuff, and we decided we'd get, some parts and pieces to build it. Most parents would either just hop online and order it up, or, go to the store when they were going to the store and, grab the parts and pieces and bring it home, for the kids to utilize during quote unquote school time. Well, you could kind of double dip and load the kids up in the car and go to the store and sure, pick up some groceries and whatnot while you're out, and then, pop into the electronics, aisle, and pick up what you need. Now, not as many stores these days have all the parts and pieces like the old, Radio Shacks and stuff. So that particular thing may not happen today, but similar thing though, whether it be other school supplies or whatever, let them come with you, run the errand, and pick up the stuff that you need. Or maybe you're not even picking up anything for a school project, but let them come along with you to run the errands and stuff. So
you're wanting to train them to be successful adults and contributing members of society, and that's how they learn it.
Yeah.